Hello everybody, Julian Schutze here from Blood and Iron Martial Arts, here today to give you another fight analysis. This one is coming out of our Blood and Iron New Mexico location, and we're going to be focusing on their head instructor over there, Justinder. Usually in my fight analyses, there was kind of like always a main theme or goal that I wanted to establish. This one has a lot more interesting little exchanges that I enjoyed looking at and being able to pick apart a little bit. Although one of the exchanges do have one of the themes I was talking about before. So I'm going to let it play out, give it a good watch, and then I'll break them down one by one. So with this one, we'll just go exchange by exchange, and I find all of them have interesting little things to look at, which is why I picked this particular fight, or I guess an overall exchange and then lots of micro exchanges within it. So the first one here starts off with his opponent throwing a lunge, and he recognizes that, his opponent has perhaps overextended with his bottom leg, and he is at full extension with his rapier, and that he is safe. So he instinctively raises his guard up to get his strong right here on his opponent's weak, his strong of his blade versus the middle of his opponent's blade. And as we can see, there's a thrust lined up right here. Unfortunately, while this is happening, his back leg is still in the air from the defense, as we can see here. This means that in order to be able to reciprocate with a counter thrust or a counterattack in general, his foot needs to be able to land, to be able to push off of, and that's exactly what we can see. We can see the second that this foot makes contact with the ground, he's loaded on it to be able to push off. Unfortunately, by that time, his opponent has already basically finished his lunge, so he is perfectly able to react. He recognizes that his thrust has in fact failed, and that his opponent has an advantageous position here. And as soon as that happens, you see him start raising his guard. And as Justinder's foot lands to be able to throw his thrust, he has now lost that strong over weak. At this point, Justinder's body's already cued the motion for a counter thrust, and there's still perhaps a little bit of an opening to take advantage of, so he pushes off the leg to go for the thrust, but his opponent is savvy to it and is able to push his guard in the way, which Justinder recognizes immediately, rolls his guard up to prepare for a thrust. Since he's already taken his lunge and his back foot's in the air, he is not able to continue forward momentum past this step. So he decides to cut everything short by pivoting on his front leg. He posts on it, pivots around with his back leg because he's going to cut his momentum short, throw a cut to keep his opponent away, and reset the exchange. Boom. Right? So, failed thrust establishes a perfect counter thrust, launches off of it, but his opponent is able to react in time, throws a cut, and then uses his footwork to cut his losses, keep himself safe with a cut in case his opponent was going to keep his initiative, and the exchange resets. Let's look at all of that again in real time. I always feel mildly ridiculous talking about how much is going on in an exchange for 5 minutes, and then the exchange itself is 2 seconds long, but muscle memory can be an incredible thing at times. So, this next one, his opponent walks in. Justinder feels that he is close enough where his guard is low, where he's able to leap in by raising his guard, once again establishing strong over weak, and that he is close enough to be able to land the thrust, and good golly is he almost there. As we can see, look how close that point is right there, and I realize it's a little hard to see, but that's his point right there. We're talking maybe an inch away from making that land. Now, granted, that's an inch away from the mask, which is, a little farther away from the face, and you still need the penetration to actually, be effective, but still, almost there. If his opponent didn't react as quickly as he did by raising his guard up, that thrust probably would have landed. And as we can see, Justinder had planted his foot for a post to be able to push off of it super aggressively, and has so much forward momentum for that thrust. Now he recognizes halfway through that, oh, this no longer works, everything rises up, so he turns his hand to try to sink the point low, but his opponent closes off that line a little too quickly by pushing down on it here. As you can see, he pushes down on it. So Justinder arrests his motion, starts slowing it down, but realizes that there's still so much momentum going on here. He doesn't know what his opponent's going to do, so then he raises his sword back up to just create an absolute barrier up here. To just try and close off all the lines he can. He plants his foot and immediately pushes off of it to spin out and give himself distance. As we could see with this defense that he did of just pushing it out of the way, he does leave himself very open here. You could argue that he is open for a counterattack, and I'm sure there might be some an elegant way to continue to disengage from his opponent or to maintain the initiative to attack, but it's possible that he's recognized that his opponent still has so much backwards momentum, and since he was planning on spinning out, getting out of the way, perhaps he felt safer just completely pushing his opponent's sword, just push it out, get it out of there, so then that way it's just not even a factor of the exchange. So, and then use the footwork to get himself safe, especially because he recognized his opponent was still backing up. So once again, let's take a look at that quick little exchange in real time. There we go. As we can see, he fails. He throws in a thrust that was very close from working, but ultimately fails. Tries to change the angle, which fails. So then he pushes everything out of the way and uses footwork to get himself back to safety. This next one is very similar to the first video. I think it was the first video I did, where about kind of forcing people to react how you want by observing how they react to your initial input. So Justinder throws a quick little feint here. He doesn't really necessarily commit to this thrust, but he sees that his opponent reacts to it big time by raising his guard up. So what he does is he tries to take advantage of that by coming in for the thrust, expecting his opponent to bring his guard up, and hooking his point around the guard to try and get to the soft squishy bits around his opponent's weapon. Unfortunately, he misses. His opponent is able to bring his guard over to defend that quadrant, so he's not able to defend it. But Justinder now has had two instances where he throws a quick jab out there and his opponent reacts by bringing his guard up. So let's see how he reacts to it a third time, where he starts by feigning the thrust, and then as soon as he sees his opponent start bringing the guard up, he rolls around and throws a cut to the leg. If the opponent's guard is, up high for defense, then, the lower regions are completely available for the taking. His opponent does do a good void. I think at one point it might have grazed the armor, because we do hear a little bit of a clack, but not enough contact there for it to do any significant damage to end the fight. And he recognized that his cut has failed, so he plants and pushes himself back up to safety. Now, his opponent makes the mistake of, well, first of all, actually, his opponent recognizes, my opponent has swung his sword. He's completely, not defending himself. Now would be a great time to now seize the initiative, which he would be completely correct. The issue is that he decides to start doing that by lunging his body forward when his weapon is not engaged, or his weapon isn't between him and his opponent. So Justinder is able to quickly bring his sword back in line and take advantage of the fact that, again, his opponent started using forward momentum without engaging their sword. So the counter, or the initial thrust, was there for the taking. And as we can see, by using geometry of the rapier, Justinder avoids death by maybe an inch. and is able to get a nice, beautiful thrust with a nice big bend in there with a nice stopping thrust. So let's watch all three of those again in real time. So that was, again, a nice little example about if you know how your opponent's going to react, then you can kind of force them to do what you want and then be able to take advantage of that. Anyway, I hope that you found this at least partially interesting. I know I did, and have yourself a good day.